Horror is dominating at the box office right now. We're in a time when there are big Disney sequels, music biopics, the first Star Wars film in half a decade. By all accounts, films like Obsession and Backrooms should be dead on arrival. But no. Times are changing, and this time it's the blockbusters which are being buried by these unique, creative, terrifying films. The industry is changing, and horror is at the center of it, and it's about damn time.
Yes, it's a genre that isn't often talked about with the Academy, and we're in a golden era for horror. Films such as Sinners, Weapons, The Substance. Horror is such an experimental genre. There's multiple possibilities that you can do with small budget. It's been here for such a long time. Petrification is within all of us. That's something we relate to. And now, there's one thing that you can't ignore about today's horror is YouTube horror. And YouTube horror is brand new. It's entering the space like Raka Raka's Talk to Me or Markiplier's Iron Lung. It's exciting. You don't know where it's going. And I think that's the cool part. People that are just coming from YouTube to cinema.
I think the big change is recognition, whether it be via awards or these past couple of weeks with box office. It feels like horror is having this boom of popularity.
This is the Out of Time Film Podcast, where your hosts Tom and John discuss everything from blockbuster films to TV and games like there's no tomorrow.
At the center of this is Obsession and Backrooms. We're going to talk about both of them, but we want to discuss the landscape right now because there's a lot to talk about. It's just great to hear that people are showing up. This week with Obsession and Backrooms is the first time this century that two indie movies took the first and second spot at the summer box office.
Yeah.
There's literally a Star Wars film out right now, and these two films are kind of blowing it out of the water. There is a changing demographic, a changing expectation. AMC, the cinema chain in America, has apparently seen its highest attendance in May since 2019. And 2019 was a big freaking year. One of the things that I think a lot of franchises and blockbusters are struggling to do is get young people on board. But these films are films for young people, made by young people. The director of Obsession, Curry Barker, is 26, and Backrooms director Kane Parsons is 20. If you want to know how to make films for young people, look no further than young people.
Indeed, this is actually promising to see this generation of filmmakers come to the spotlight. You don't know what their style is like, and it's brand new to the scene. We want to see new voices. We want to see people that have original ideas, like Obsession. I think that will relate to so many people, how it impacts you afterwards, like how it makes you think about relationships. And Backrooms is very much existential, liminal space that makes you uncomfortable and makes you think about everyday objects. So these films give you food for thought in a way, which I really liked. These films are just very unique.
Yeah, let's talk a bit about them.
I want to start with Obsession. That's the one I really
Let's
loved.
do it. Yeah, me
Let's do
too.
it.
I absolutely loved Obsession. It was maybe the scariest film I've ever seen, full stop. And I've seen a lot of scary movies. And Obsession is about this guy called Bear who has a big crush on this girl called Nikki. He ends up finding this thing called a one-wish willow and quite casually makes a wish saying, I wish Nikki loved me more than anyone else in the world. The wish ends up coming true, and she really does love him more than anyone in the world.
Obsession. Hey,
Oh, the whole thing is anchored by these two absolutely powerful and devastating and creepy performances from Inde
Yes.
Navarrete and Michael Johnston. We've seen Inde Navarrete in Superman and Lois, so I'm very
Yes.
familiar with her as a performer, and I didn't know that she had this kind of
She was cooking. She was cooking. My
genuinely,
God.
the physicality of her performance, all of her facial expressions, and the way that she moves sometimes.
With the vocals as well. I don't know how she did it with the vocals. Like, she's like a scream queen. Another note to that as well, with the lighting. My favorite shot in the entire film is when you can see the light in her eyes.
Yes. Yes.
My God,
Oh
how
my
on
God.
earth did they do that? It was super uncomfortable, and I loved that. I think that was the film's direction all the way through. You just don't know what's going to happen. Great work, Indy. You scared
Yeah.
the hell out of me, so thank you.
The way that her obsession gets deeper and deeper and she becomes more unhinged as Cooper Johnston spends the whole time quite timid, becoming more and more scared and detached from this kind of thing that he's created for himself. The film's not very long, but I thought it felt so short because the whole time it was so gripping watching this descent. And towards the end, we begin to introduce the gore, the properly insane aspects.
With horror films, sometimes when it's explaining the myth, I liked this film with the idea of there's something that we don't know yet. The One Wish Willow, the implications and consequences. I find it interesting that the wish just removes all of Nikki's autonomy and have a whole different person within Nikki, which is such a fascinating concept because with the other wishes, when you see the threads about is the One Wish Willow real, does it work? In one of the comments it said, yeah, it works. It made my mom heart, like something like that. It's like something that...
Oh, God.
And I think that's just great to leave the audience to think about what could be the disastrous things, the implications of the One Wish Willow.
There's so much to think about. The idea of control and autonomy is very central to the film. What becomes of Nikki because of this wish is completely inhumane and completely ruins her life. It almost removes her life. It's so indescribable. You have to see it with your own eyes.
Yes.
But it's so great. And the sound design and the way that the film uses the score.
And the writing in this movie is very clever. We're in spoilers now. So there's one bit where Bear is eating his sandwich. It gets a sticker. It's like, oh, what's the verdict? Cat. He realizes that he's eating his own cat.
Oh,
his dead cat, by the way.
Yeah, Nikki made him the cat.
Oh, God. I'm just like in the cinema. It's like, okay, no, get me out. It just nailed it. And the jump scares, well deserved. Because there was one scene. You talk about it.
Are you going to talk about the car scene?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a really tender moment between Bear and Sarah. This whole time they've built Sarah up as this character who is like genuinely good, cares about Bear, whilst he's pining after Nikki. They're having a heart-to-heart. And I think we all, the characters and the audience, come to the realization that, oh, these guys actually would work together. And then out of the darkness, Nikki just smashes the window and smashes Sarah's face repeatedly against a brick, absolutely mangling her. Jump scares are very difficult to get right. Some horror films aren't necessarily jump scary kind of horrors. Like Backrooms isn't a jump scary horror. But Obsession is, and it doesn't feel cheap. I was on a trampoline. I was like bouncing up and down every now and again just because of how terrifying it was. And I think that it's brilliant that we can have that kind of range as well.
The conflicted characters that we follow through as well. Bear, at the beginning, we do follow his story, and then midway, he just has this completely different shift because, as you said, he's hung up with Nikki all the way through. And there's one horrifying moment where the actual Nikki is able to speak to Bear.
Yes.
Like, please set me free. And he does nothing. He does absolutely nothing. And then at the very end as well, when Bear decides not to, because for context, the One Wish Willow wish can be declined if you're dead. Bear is figuring out what to do, but he does nothing. He does absolutely nothing. He's so selfish. And does not actually care about the consequences. I just love how conflicted the characters are, and it just felt so believable.
We're talking about a director who is in his early career, and what he has made is just incredible. So, it's in its 4th week as we're recording this, and so we have all the data for the first 3 weeks. It's already crossed 150 million at the global box office on a budget of only $750,000. Now, let me remind you, and I feel like I bring this up all the time, in 2023, we had these blockbusters that were costing like $300+ million. Ant-Man, Indiana Jones, Dead Reckoning. Films should not be costing that amount of money. But Obsession, a film with such craft, it's so cheap. There is the possibility of this film hitting between 300 and 400 million, which is already incredible, but that's over 400 times its budget. That's one of the most profitable films of all time. This is so popular, John, that the planned digital re-release for the 2nd of June was cancelled. This could even get the 45-day theatrical window, which is usually reserved for blockbusters. It made...
What?
Yeah, right? It made $26.4 million domestically in its 3rd week, which, okay, might not sound like a lot, but that's up 10% from its 2nd week. Do you know the last time a film went up in its 3rd week?
What? I'm just so hooked in this conversation. Backrooms.
No.
Oh, sorry. Mandalorian Grogu.
No. No, it went up, not down. R2.
Obsession.
Up,
Obsession.
No, when was the last time that before Obsession? You'll get there. We'll get you there.
Remember, man. I'm so
okay. It was E.T. in 1982. The last time that a film had an increase.
Why would you give me such an obscure question? Yeah, when was the last time? I wasn't there in 1989, Tom. I wasn't there.
1982.
1982.
I thought you were gonna guess big films like Endgame or Avatar, or I didn't think you were gonna just be like, yeah, Backrooms. Like that hasn't even had 3 weeks yet. Anyway, the point is, this is just smashing records already. And again, this is what you do. You hire young talent, don't have a ridiculous budget. This stuff is really important. And now let's talk about Backrooms.
Backrooms. Yes. It's a story that focuses on this furniture store manager, Clark. He discovers that there's an entire place that's been hiding beneath this furniture store. He tries to explain it to his therapist. His therapist thinks he might be going a bit crazy. You're probably thinking, is it a continuation of the YouTube series, The Backrooms? I'm not sure. Kane hasn't really explained about what's going to be, but it's more of like his idea cinematically what The Backrooms is. And I have to say, a film that's made by a 20-year-old, this is not a bad film, really. Yeah. There was one sequence that I loved in this film that made me super uncomfortable. It did provide such a strong visual experience, but there's a lot of things that fell flat for me personally as well. It's very unique though.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's a lot of fantastic things to be found in this film, and I unfortunately found it a bit slow. I think that it kind of meanders and could be exploring some of its characters a little bit more, but like at the center of it, this idea of these liminal spaces based off the idea in a video game of clipping out of an environment and just exploring like what's behind everything and this weird geography that makes no real sense. It's very well done. It's suitably creepy and thoughtful, and there's these ideas of memory and the layers of memory, and the Backrooms are the remembered places, and I think that's very interesting because memory doesn't line up to reality like at all. No. It's a very, very good concept that we explore in a pretty good film.
Yeah, there is a good scene where Clark talks about like what the Backrooms is, but what the film did was actually explore memory. The fantastic sequence I was talking about, there's a room that has a Christmas tree, or there's walls that has pirate steering things, and chairs and things that you aren't familiar with, like shoes stuck in the ground or chairs. There's a lot of visual elements that this film really explores, but there's some confusing things as well that could have done visually, like maybe explore Clark, but that's explored a lot through dialogue, like the therapist scene, like my wife kicked me out. Whereas with the therapist, we got backstories of her. I don't think that works really well with the story because it's like, who are we focusing on? This film struggles with its exposition.
It's beginning to ask some of those questions, but I think it gets into it a little bit too late. I think it kicks into gear in the second half, but by the time that we get both Clark and the therapist into the Backrooms, the film is kind of ready to be finished almost. I mean, while Obsession was a two-hander and the whole time is interactions between Nikki and Bear, Clark and the therapist is Mary. Clark and Mary don't quite get enough, I think, time to interact so we can kind of see their reactions. There's much less to be said about somebody running through the Backrooms in confusion as there is, like, there's a great scene where they sit down at a dinner table. He's telling her what he thinks it all means, and that's interesting, but again, it is very exposition heavy, and I think that's ironic because a lot of people are not liking this film because of how little it explains. I don't mind that it doesn't explain things, I agree with you, but I think in terms of the characters, that's where I'm a little bit more like, maybe we could have some dialogue here that gets us into that.
Yeah, that whole dinner scene, I think it just dissipates the intensity right away. Because it's like, I mean, it's such a weird tonal shift. That scene, it's like, oh, you suddenly chill in the Backrooms. Okay. This Backrooms is not as bad as it seems. We got a party going. We got
this is nice. We can eat this stuff. Oh.
Which is weird because beforehand, my favorite sequence is when Clark and his other assistants get taken away. The first bit where I was so uncomfortable was when you get to see the pile of clothes in this very dark room. With the VHS, it just has this really organic fear to it. That's my wording, like organic fear. There's something there. I just want to look away, but there's something interesting. I just loved that chase. That to me was like one of the most intense moments of this film that I really, really loved. That really stuck with me.
Revel in the unknown. That's what horror always needs to do. And you see the creature or the alien or whatever, and for me, it just loses everything. And spoilers, in this film, we see that the creature chasing everybody is like this kind of weird, remembered, elongated version of Clark in his furniture store pirate outfit. I agree with you. It loses steam because it's no longer scaring me that much. When we see it from afar in the shadows, it's much scarier than actually getting to kind of look it in the face.
Yeah. In horror movies, they build up the suspense about what is this unknown, what we see.
Yes.
I think the Backrooms should have been shown a little bit later.
Because of course, because we start with the Backrooms.
Yes.
And the opening, and I agree. I think it is a little bit like, now that you've shown us the Backrooms, I'm just waiting.
Scary.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm waiting for you to go back rather than dropping us in the middle of a story where there's nothing that I know of at all.
We could have had the therapist to look. That's the story. Like, the therapist is looking for Clark, in this entire story.
Absolutely. I think there's also something to be said about the practicality of the film. That the Backrooms, they built them, and they built these really expansive sets, and they look just incredible. There's a little bit of CGI in there. It looks suitably creepy.
Kane has made the Backrooms with Blender, and I think I saw some of the Blender shots in the movie when it's only in the VHS stuff. That's cool.
There is a lot of the VHS, a lot of like found footage. Part of me did think, would this film have maybe landed a little bit better if they'd have committed to one or the other? Because I think you can get away with some of those writing discrepancies and some of those pacing issues in found footage. It's an interesting thing to kind of unpack. The film looks incredible. Budget for this one is 10 million. I don't think any 20-year-old should be allowed near that sort of money, but used very, very well. And it already smashed that in its opening weekend, record-breaking 81.5 million in its opening weekend. And that's just domestically. Immediately in the top 5 highest-grossing A24 films in one weekend. Like, it's literally only behind Civil War, The Drama, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Mighty Supreme. And it probably will exceed quite a few of those. That's with 88 of the audience domestically were under the age of 35. Again, films by young people, just amazing. And it is one of the few horrors in history to cross $100 million globally in its opening weekend. Internationally, in its opening weekend, it grossed more than, get this, Sinners, Nope, Smile, Weapons, Quiet Place 2, Scream 6 and 7, Lee Cronin's The Mummy, and to casual audiences, it's just like a tiny indie film with no franchise connections, anything like that. Insane. It had the 5th biggest domestic opening day for a horror film ever.
Wow.
Huh? That's incredible.
That is just mind-blowing to think about. Because in the past, you know the days, Tom, when superhero films were just absolutely dominating the box office.
Oh, yeah.
Now, right here defines that indie filmmaking is so profitable. Maybe it's not horror, maybe it's a different genre, but horror seems to be the one.
Studios, listen now.
Listen now, this is your chance. Heed your warning. What's a good
please, like the Simpsons movie. Twisted Tale, 1,000 Eyes, Trapped Forever, People of Springfield. They're not going to learn the right lessons from this. They never do.
No.
But this doesn't mean that this can only happen with horror. That's what we need to learn from this. You put young people in the driver's seat, you let the budget be low, then it's less risk to the studios as well. But no, they're not learning the right lessons because they're making an Aunt Gladys prequel. There's already a Backroom sequel in development. I'm sure that the people involved have things to say, and it's not just studios saying, well, let's capitalize on this. But at the same time, the lesson isn't make Backrooms a franchise.
I want to see Kane do something else.
I love it when filmmakers have range, and I'm sure that because of this popular, they'll be very much in demand. Kane and Curry are going to go home. Not together, maybe together. You never know.
Together. Yo, that'd be so sick, actually. Maybe there'll be like a bit of a collaboration there. Maybe.
Oh, I was thinking husbands. Happy Pride, everyone.
Happy Pride! Yes!
Woo! They come home together, and James Gunn is standing there like Nick Fury, and he's like, I'm putting together a team.
Sure, man.
I
sure,
mean,
let's have James Gunn into this as well.
Because that's what happens. That's the pipeline. You get interesting horror directors, and they make a superhero movie, or they make a Star Wars movie, or whatever. This is just a great phenomenon to see. This week we were going to talk about Spider Noir. We'll get there, but I just couldn't pass up this opportunity to talk about how exciting the direction of cinema is and how horror is leading the charge into the future.
Yeah, I'm very, very excited to see what the outcome is going to be like. And then have those companies that made those films give opportunities to other voices into horror or any other genre.
Hire us. Give us a call.
Hire us. We will make a movie about how Al Pacino got into Dunkin' Donuts and become Dunkachino. You don't know that, Tom, do you?
I don't know that.
That's just a weird reference, sorry.
You'll have to wait and see whether I edit that out. To finish, what would you give Backrooms and Obsession out of 10?
Backrooms was alright. I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. And then I loved Obsession. I'm gonna give that a 9.
You read my mind. I'm the exact same. 6 for Backrooms, 9 for Obsession.
6, 9! No.
Whoa.
Whoa! Sorry.
Back.
He's
He
back.
never went anywhere.
No.
Tune in next week. Oh,
Yeah.
God. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Like it, subscribe, follow, 5-star review, all those things. Next week, we're going from young directors, hot directors, fresh directors to the GOAT. Spielberg's back, baby. Disclosure Day. I'm so
Disclosure
excited.
Day.
It's going to be great.
Will this film disclose anything? Question mark?
Maybe.
Maybe.
And you can send us an email at OurTimeFilmPod. Let us know your thoughts on Disclosure Day, and we'll answer right here on the podcast next week.
Follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter. Thanks for Zain for the incredible thumbnails. Thanks to Elle for the theme. And thanks, Ronan, for the vocals as always. And that's all for today's episode. Takeaway given.
Give nothing back.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.